Pilipinas bilang isang bansang sagana sa agrikultura.
Dahil laganap pa rin ang gutom sa bansa. Natatakot ang Department of Agrarian Reform sa posibleng food shortage kung magpatuloy ito.
No way to earn a living to feed.
Bitin kapag walang-wala na sa budget.
The province is expecting to lose at least half its crops.
On pre-Spanish era, Filipinos already lived in villages and barangays. During the pre-Spanish era, there was no concept of land ownership and there is no land distribution yet. The settlements were ruled by the chieftains or datos who comprised the nobility, maharlikas or freemen, aliping na mamahay or serfs, and aliping sa gigilid or slaves. Despite the existence of social structure, everyone had access to the fruits of the soil. Rice was the medium of exchange as money is yet unknown. It is called the barter system. Spanish period 1521 to 1896. Spaniards introduced the concept of encomienda and pueblo agriculture to the Philippines. The system of pueblo agriculture was introduced, organizing rural communities into pueblos and assigning them land to cultivate. Encomienda is a system of giving land or royal grants to the Spanish conquerors that were loyal to the monarch. As a matter of policy, encomenderos must defend his encomienda from external attack, maintain peace and order within, and support the missionaries. In turn, they were given the right to collect taxes or tribute from the Indios or natives. Encomenderos started to abuse their powers by renting their lands to a few powerful landlords, and the natives who once freely cultivated the land became shared tenants. The lack of land ownership rights for Filipinos. Filipinos were not given the right to own land under Spanish rule. Instead, they worked on the land assigned to them and received a share of the crops while paying tribute to the comenderos or owners. Exploitative encomienda system and abused the landowners. Farmers were forced to sell their products at low prices or surrender them to the encomenderos who profited from reselling them. And the impact of religious orders on land ownership. They increased rent payment arbitrarily, further burdening Filipino farmers. The concentration of land in the hands of religious order contributed to the unequal distribution of wealth and power in the country.
The Americans were aware that the main cause of social unrest in the Philippines was landlessness, and they attempted to put an end to the miserable conditions of the tenant farmers by passing several land policies to increase the small landholders and distribute ownership to a greater number of Filipino tenants and farmers. The Philippine Bill of 1902 provided regulations on the disposal of public lands. A private individual may own 16 hectares of land, while corporate landholders may have 1,024 hectares. Americans were also given rights to own agricultural lands in the country. But did these land policies help the farmers' situation? No. Land ownership did not improve during the American period. In fact, it even worsened, because there was no limit to the size of land holdings people could possess, and the accessibility of possession was limited to those who could afford to buy, register, and acquire fixed property titles. If a landless peasant farmer received land, he only received land, nothing more. Many were forced to return to tenancy, and wealthy Filipino hacienderos purchased or purposely took over lands from farmers who could not afford to pay their debts. It enabled more lands to be placed under tenancy, which led to widespread peasant uprisings such as Sakdal Uprising. The Sakdal Uprising was a peasant rebellion in central Luzon that lasted for 2 days. It was easily crushed by government forces then, but this historical event tells of the social inequality brought about by issues in land ownership and tenancy in the country.
Restoration and innovation after the war were engrossed on providing solutions to the problems of the previous. The administration of President Rojas handed Republic Act No. 34 to establish 70-30 allocation arrangement between tenant and landowner correspondingly, which reduced the interest of landowners' mortgages to tenants at 6% or less. The tenant will oversee all the expenditures and labor, thus he will acquire the 70%, while the rest is for the landowner, means the 30%. The Land Settlement Development Corporation, or LASEDECO, under the period of President Elpidio Quirino, was established to accelerate and expand the resettlement program for farmers. LASEDECO is a short-term solution for farming. With the help of LASEDECO, they were given the opportunity to have a land not only farmers and tenants, but also agricultural graduates. They also facilitate the resettlement, cultivation of land, and providing the irrigation systems. But later on, it became the National Resettlement and Rehabilitation Administration, or NARA, under the government of President Ramon Magsaysay. The NARA is a long-term solution for resettlement and rehabilitation. They are the ones who give, survey, and divide the land to be distributed to the Philippines. They also determine which of the applicants is eligible to be given land. Additionally, it gives some assistance to the settlers that they can use to provide some things for their rehabilitation. Under the administration of the Ramon Magsaysay, there were several interventions for land reform. First, President Magsaysay convinced the Congress to pass legislation to improve the land situation. Republic Act No. 1199, or the Agricultural Tenancy Act, was passed in order to protect the tenural rights of tenants to enforce tenancy practices. Second, the Court of Agricultural Relations was created in 1955 purposely to improve tenancy security and resolve land disputes. Third, the establishment of the Agricultural Tenancy Commission to administer, created by tenancy. Fourth, the creation of Agricultural Credit and Cooperative Financing Administration, or ACFA, mainly to provide warehouse facilities and assist farmers in marketing products. Primary source: Declaration of Policy under RA No. 3844, or Agricultural Land Reform Code. Source: Section 2, Declaration of Policy. It is the policy of the state. 1 means any person who, providing capital and management, personally cultivates his own land with the aid of immediate family or household. 2 means institutional restraints are products that limit mobility and are used in case where a patient imposes a danger to themselves or others. It aims to eliminate potential hazards. 3 means an agrarian society is identified by its occupational structure. People are involved in the domestication of plants and animals and other related activities. 4. Every person has the right to enjoy the human rights without discrimination. Every person has the right to equal and effective protection against discrimination. 5 means qualified beneficiaries are farmers, tillers, or farm workers who are landless and who own land less than 3 hectares of agricultural lands. 6 means a democratic society are committed to the values of tolerance, cooperation, and compromise.
The declaration of martial law in the Philippines by President Marcos in 1972 was a significant event that had a significant impact on the country's political and economic landscape. One of the key aspects of the regime's efforts to address the country's structural issues was the implementation of the Code of Agrarian Reform of the Philippines through Presidential Decree Number 27. This decree aimed to provide tenant farmers with ownership of a portion of private agricultural lands primarily devoted to rice and corn under a system of sharecrop or less tenancy. According to the decree, tenant farmers, whether in land classified as landed estate or not, would be deemed owners of a portion constituting a family-sized farm of 5 hectares if not irrigated and 3 hectares if irrigated. However, the landowner could retain an area of not more than 7 hectares if such landowner was cultivating such an area or would now cultivate it. The value of the land would be equivalent to 2.5 times the average harvest of the 3 normal crop years immediately preceding the promulgation of this decree. Despite the government's efforts to implement agrarian reform through programs such as Operation Land Transfer and Basagana 99, landlords were able to circumvent the laws by changing crops or evicting tenants and workers. This led to increased landlessness and made it difficult for the program to succeed. Additionally, corruption by Marcos and his cronies further worsened the situation. Thus, the implementation of agrarian reform in the Philippines under the Marcos regime was a complex and challenging process that was ultimately unsuccessful in addressing the country's structural issues.
The post-1986 Agrarian Reform. It is the overthrow of Marcos and the 1987 Constitution that resulted in a renewed interest and attention to agrarian reform as President Corazon Aquino envisioned agrarian reform to be the centerpiece of her administrations. She came from a family of a wealthy and landed clan that owned the Hacienda Loisita. On July 22, 1987, Aquino issued Presidential Proclamation 131 and Executive Order 229, which outlined her land reform program. In 1988, the Congress passed Republic Act No. 6657 or the Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Law or CARL, which introduced the program with the same name, Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Program or CARP. It enabled the redistribution of agricultural lands to tenant farmers from landowners, who were paid in exchange by the government through just compensation and allowed them to retain not more than 5 hectares. CARP was limited because it accomplished very little during the administration of Aquino. It only accomplished 22.5% of land distribution in 6 years owing to the fact that Congress, dominated by the landed elite, was unwilling to fund the high compensation cost of the program. Hacienda Loisita reorganized itself into a corporation and distributed stocks to farmers. By 1996, the Department of Agrarian Reform or DAR distributed only 58.25% of the total area target to be covered by the program. To address the lacking funding and the dwindling time for the implementation of CARP, Ramos signed Republic Act No. 8532 in 1998 to amend CARL and extend the program to another 10 years.
The new deadline of CARP expired in 2008, leaving 1.2 million farmer beneficiaries and 1.6 million hectares of agricultural land to be distributed to farmers. In 2009, President Arroyo signed Republic Act number 9700, or the Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Program Extension with Reforms, or also known as the CARPER, the mandatory law that extended the deadline to 5 more years. Section 30 of the law also mandates that any case and/or proceeding involving the implementation of the provisions of CARP as amended, which may remain pending on June 30, 2014, shall be allowed to proceed to its finality and executed even beyond such date. From 2009 to 2014, CARPER has distributed a total of 1 million hectares of land to 900,000 farmer beneficiaries. After 27 years of land reform and 2 Aquino administrations, 500,000 hectares of lands remain undistributed. The DAR and the Department of Environment and Natural Resources are the government agencies mandated to fulfill CARP and CARPER, but even the combined effort and resources of the 2 agencies are provided incapable of fully achieving the goal of agrarian reform in the Philippines. The same problems have plagued its implementation. The powerful landed elite and the ineffectual bureaucracy of the Philippine government. Until these 2 challenges are surmounted, genuine agrarian reform in the Philippines remains but the dreams of Filipino farmers who have been fighting for the right to land ownership for centuries.